Let's start with a change that will affect millions of Californians who live in neighborhoods or condos governed by homeowners associations, also called HOAs. If you've ever lived under an HOA, you know they have a lot of power. They can tell you what color you can paint your house, where you can park, even what kind of plants you can have in your yard. And if you break their rules, you usually get hit with a fine.
As of June 30, 2025, California passed a new law, Assembly Bill 130, that changes how HOAs can punish residents. Under this law, HOAs can't fine you more than $100 for each violation. That's a big shift because before this law, some HOAs were charging people hundreds or even thousands of dollars for small rule breaks. Imagine paying a $500 fine just for leaving your trash cans out overnight. That's the kind of thing this law is trying to stop. Now, there are some exceptions. If your violation creates a real risk to health or safety, the HOA can fine more than $100. But here's the catch. They can't just say it's a risk. The HOA board has to make a written statement at an open meeting explaining exactly why it's dangerous. So if your pool gate is broken and it's a safety hazard for kids, they can go higher than $100. But for things like having weeds in your yard or painting your house the wrong shade of beige, they're capped.
Another big change: HOAs can't pile on extra late fees or interest charges for unpaid fines anymore. Before, a $200 fine could balloon into $500 or $600 just because of added fees. That's gone now. Instead, the fine stays the same. This is a relief for many homeowners who felt like fines were being used as a way to squeeze money out of them.
The law also says homeowners must be given a chance to fix the problem before the HOA fines them. So let's say your fence is leaning and breaking community standards. If you repair it before the hearing date, the HOA can't fine you at all. This makes the process feel more fair. Instead of just being punished right away, you get the chance to make it right. Not everyone is happy, though. Homeowners who were tired of surprise bills are celebrating. One homeowner even said this law will finally stop HOAs from acting like they're above the law. But HOA boards and property managers are worried. They say the $100 cap makes it harder to enforce rules, especially in wealthy communities where $100 doesn't feel like a big deal. Some boards think people might just ignore the rules now, since the punishment is smaller. So while it's a win for homeowners on paper, the real test will be how HOAs adjust their enforcement policies moving forward.
This new law is important because it shows California is listening to homeowners who feel HOAs have been abusing their power. It also means HOAs across the state are now scrambling to rewrite their fine schedules and rule books to stay legal. If they don't, they could face lawsuits themselves. So whether you love your HOA or hate it, these changes are going to make life in HOA communities very different. And that's just one major policy shift in California housing. But while lawmakers are reining in HOA power, they're also tackling another huge issue: the state's growing property insurance crisis. Let's get into that. Now let's talk about something that's been stressing out thousands of homeowners across California: the property insurance crisis. Here's what's happening. In recent years, insurance companies have been pulling back from California, especially in areas prone to wildfires, floods, and earthquakes. They say the risks are just too high, and paying out claims is costing them billions. As a result, many homeowners are receiving letters that their policies are being canceled, or their renewal rates are going up by thousands of dollars. For example, in fire-prone counties like Sonoma and Butte, some families report their premiums doubling, even tripling in just 2 years. Others have been forced into the state's last resort program called the FAIR Plan, which offers limited coverage and often costs more than a regular policy. The problem has grown so urgent that Governor Gavin Newsom issued an executive order in late 2025, telling the state's Department of Insurance to come up with solutions fast. His goal? To stabilize the market so homeowners aren't left uninsured.
One big idea on the table is to streamline the approval process for rate hikes. Right now, when insurers went to raise prices, they often face months or years of delays, especially if consumer advocacy groups push back. Insurance companies argue this system makes them hesitant to stay in California because they can't adjust prices quickly enough to keep up with rising risks. On the other hand, consumer advocates say fast-tracking rate hikes could leave families paying way more than they can afford.
This tug of war between affordability and availability is the heart of the crisis. If rates go too high, people can't afford coverage. But if rates stay too low, companies might stop offering insurance altogether. It's a delicate balance, and right now, California hasn't found the perfect solution. The crisis also has a ripple effect on the housing market. Think about it. If you can't get insurance, you usually can't get a mortgage. And if you can't get a mortgage, you can't buy a home. That means fewer buyers in risky areas, lower property values, and more pressure on already stressed homeowners. So while the new HOA law we talked about earlier deals with small fines, the insurance crisis is a much bigger structural issue that touches every corner of the state. It doesn't just affect people in wildfire zones. It's reshaping how lenders, insurers, and buyers all view California real estate.
And the story isn't over. The insurance department is now working on new rules, and lawmakers are considering reforms for 2026. But for now, many Californians are stuck paying sky-high premiums, or worse, with no coverage at all. All right, with that in mind, let's move on to another headline shaking up the housing industry: the major lawsuit against Zillow and Redfin that could change how rental listings work across the country.
Next up, let's dive into a legal battle that could shake up how millions of people search for rentals online. This one involves two of the biggest names in real estate tech, Zillow and Redfin. Both companies were hit with a federal lawsuit in late 2025, accusing them of violating antitrust laws in the way they handle rental listings. At the center of the lawsuit is something called the Multiple Listing Service, or MLS for short. This is basically a giant database where real estate brokers and agents share property information. If you've ever searched for a rental or a home online, chances are the data came from an MLS. Here's the problem. The lawsuit claims Zillow and Redfin have been collaborating with big broker networks to block out smaller competitors. The allegation is that these companies use their size and partnerships to restrict access to certain listings, making it harder for independent websites or smaller rental apps to compete.
For renters, this means you might not always see the full picture when you're scrolling through Zillow or Redfin. Some rental listings could be hidden, delayed, or even paywalled, forcing both landlords and tenants into systems that favor the biggest players. Lawyers argue this hurts competition, keeps fees high, and limits consumer choice. Now, Zillow and Redfin both deny the accusations, saying they follow industry rules and that their platforms actually give renters more options, not fewer. But if the courts side with the plaintiffs, we could see a major shakeup in how online real estate platforms are allowed to operate. Think about it. If Zillow and Redfin are forced to open up their platforms, renters could get faster access to more listings, while landlords might face lower advertising costs. On the other hand, if the companies win, it could strengthen the current system and make it even harder for smaller real estate sites to compete. The lawsuit is being compared to other big antitrust cases in tech, like the ones against Google and Facebook. And just like those, the outcome here could set a precedent for how online platforms handle data, transparency, and competition.